Bam. That's it.
I'm Alison Arngrim.
And I'm Dean Butler, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I love it. I love it. We are getting things done. And on cue, here comes my cat. Hi, Kitty. Hey, you two are always doing fun and exciting things. It's neat that you belong to this community, the Little House world. I love it. I love the books. And I'm told that they are doing a new version of it. Do you guys want to talk about this new thing, or should we talk about other stuff?
Well, I think it's a great topic. I think it's a great topic. So I think Allison and I are both all in on this new series that Netflix is doing. And look, we're not necessarily a part of it, other than being a part of the Little House family, and we actively perceive ourselves as part of the Little House family. And I think, it is a big, large property, and we're all a part of it. And so we're excited about that.
Oh yeah, I mean we're not in it. This is the new thing. It's not like a reboot. It's like a prequel. It's going back to the books. But all of us from the show, we're all just kind of sitting there with our popcorn on the edge of our seats, waiting to see how does this come out and who are they going to get for Laura and what's it going to be like. We're all totally jazzed. We're on board. We're in.
I love it. I love it. I love the books. I mean, so many generations.
You're gonna love this one. It's going back to the books. I think all the history people and the book people are going to go gaga.
Right. And this isn't like a knock on Michael Landon, but he kind of Michael Landonified the story, because at some point you run out of material and everything else. But I am desperate for this thing. And also some of the books that have been written afterwards, hopefully they'll bring some of that in, like when Laura, their friend, and daughter always just drive across in a Model A across the country, which is it's so crazy.
Well, you're talking about Rose Wilder Lane now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she was really a hugely successful writer and led her mother into the whole writing adventure, because she was very concerned about how her parents were going to support themselves. And she knew that her mother had stories, and she encouraged her mother to write those stories. And her mother became quite a wonderful writer. And I think Rose was a huge part. And this has been a big dispute in Laura world for a long time, but I think that the thinking has really evolved to the understanding that Rose was a very critical player in her mother's writing adventure and the ultimate success she had doing it.
And that later stuff when, they go to the Pan Pacific Exposition and all that stuff, the stories go on endlessly because, Laura writes, 9 books. But then, there's the stories when they move to Missouri and when she hangs out with her daughter, which all got added to the canon of the whole thing. And then, Pioneer Girl, which was the original autobiography that became later the Little House books. There's so much historical stuff to draw on there. You could just keep making Little House on the Prairie over and over forever, technically.
Yeah.
Well, Little House on the Prairie is Americana. Little House on the Prairie is the American experience in a very real way. And so, as Allison says, you're right, it could be written over and over and over again because it's been lived over and over and over again by so many ancestors of so many people.
And just pick any segment of Laura's life and you have like yet another film. It's an endless supply of material. So I see why they finally said, okay, we're going to go back and do it again. It's like, okay, we'll do it again. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I love it. I love that they're doing it again. One of the things that when we at our worst, we'll go dig up Laura and yell at her and call her a horrible thing. I'm sorry, that's what society loves to do. We get really critical of Laura Ingels Wilder, but we take her out of context. These people lived in a dugout by a river, right? And to understand that and to survive fevers, to go blind in that era. I mean, there's a lot that we don't get about how hard it was to even just stay alive, to put a plow in land that was free. Like, that's not the best land often. It's the land you have to work hard.
That's why they're giving it away, because it wasn't any good. But what's amazing about Laura, everyone says, well, in the time period she's writing about, everybody kind of hates everybody. But for instance, in Little House on the Prairie, she's super young. And when you realize that the events in Little House in the Big Woods actually took place after Little House on the Prairie, she switched around. She was practically a baby when they were in Kansas. She was like 3, 4. She wasn't 8 years old or 9. She was a tiny, tiny little girl. Yet in Little House on the Prairie, she's having these very long, complex conversations, arguments with her mother about the Native Americans. And she's taking their side and saying that they're not being treated properly and that her mother is being overly hostile. Like, yes, we understand you were there for the wars and a lot of people were killed, but these are the good people who have helped us. And Pa has had interactions with the local Native Americans. It's all been great. And you need to like get off it and be cool. She was 3. She was not having these conversations. So that means that in the 1930s, when people still weren't terribly friendly with Native Americans, Laura Ingels Wilder sat down and decided to write that and put that argument in there defending Native American rights, which is kind of like, wait a minute. She's clearly pro-Native American Indian rights. What the? So it's a little confusing because then people saying, "Oh, she's anti-Native American." Really? No, that doesn't work.
No, I think Allison's right. There is so much that, when taken in isolation, which of course it's easy to do in any time that we're living in, is isolated from the larger period, the larger context. I think Laura. I think Laura did take a shot in Little Town on the Prairie for the blackface minstrel show. There was, that was half a page in the book, but a huge pushback ultimately on that experience. But at the time that she wrote about this was not an uncommon occurrence. And I think what's been lost in so many of these conversations is that these are teaching moments. These are opportunities for us to look at where we've been, where we are, and to be able to project where we're going. I think throughout our culture, we are very strategically, and unfortunately not to our benefit, erasing the past so that we're not accountable for it, so that it's not part of the conversation that allows us to see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And I think that's very unfortunate for all of us that we're doing.
It's there for us to learn from. Absolutely. And then also there's moments in the book when sometimes if I feel like it's gone astray, I go, is this a Rose moment? Because there's moments totally in the books where I go, and now Rose is talking. Okay. Because you can just tell. Like we're having a Rose episode suddenly.
They were very much, Laura and her daughter were very much thought of as libertarians, and in the common of the, they were very much sort of anti-government. I think in Farmer Boy, there's during the 4th of July celebration, there's a whole passage about people yelling against the government in as much as they're also saying the Pledge of Allegiance and singing patriotic songs. But then there's also some voices against, and I think that is a Rose argument. Yeah.
There's a lot with that. I mean, the understanding the context of the time. If we want to get offended, I can go look through my grandfather's yearbooks from Inglewood High School, and guess what? There's minstrel shows in there. People are people in the time that they're in, and look, when I was a kid, all right, I'm 55 years old. You guys have got to say how old you are, but we had a thing called, during Spirit Week, the slave sale. And other students could buy other students. And then you would have to do all kinds of you would be, lightly hazed, maybe made out with, all kinds of things, right? But if you just look at that one moment and say, this is what Pete was, like, no, it was a great time. It was fun. It was a chance for people to do crazy things, but also horribly inappropriate if you look at the slave connotation, right?
Yes.
It's different.
I think we all become shocked by these things, or we can become shocked by these things. But the more you look, the more you realize these things, all the things that we are shocked about, have deep roots in a cultural evolution. And I think the good news is we have evolved in a positive way as a culture over time. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Do we step backwards at times? Yes, we do. But the overall trajectory has been forward and overall positive. And I think we need to remember that as there is the hand wringing about hand-wringing about change or the past. I mean, it depends on where you stand as to whether the past or whether the present is a good or a bad thing. It just depends where you are.
Yeah, it's all forward. I mean, we don't live in caves and hunt mastodons anymore.
Right.
I mean,
right. That's right.
We change. We go, that was weird. Yeah, we used to do that. Do we do that? We don't do that anymore. Oh, okay.
Right. Yes, we gave up horses and buggies, and yes, yeah. we've come a long way. We've come a long way.
And there's also the things, again, like we lose track of these things, but Laura, her friend, and her daughter in a Model A drive across the country when there weren't even roads. They drove through revetments. And so, like, hey, women have been doing amazing things for a long time. We didn't invent that here in the late 20th century, early 21st century. There's been incredible women who have done things. And if we allow them to be the people of their time, man, there's good and bad, of course.
Oh, Laura was very much a leader, and look what Rose accomplished. Yeah, these were very, very forward-thinking women.
Yeah. Dean.
No, just, one of the things that's so amazing about Laura's life is she crossed the prairie the first time in a covered wagon, and at the end of her life, she flew across the country in an airliner.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's a pretty extraordinary evolution that she lived through. I mean, we've all lived through huge advances of time, but I think that period that she lived through in terms of electricity and the telephone and flying across the country and all these things that were never conceived of in her lifetime, in her early lifetime, that are really the foundation of the life that we live today. And it's evolved, but the foundation was forged then. It was the Pony Express, and then cross-country telephone communication. It's incredible. Yeah.
When I think about so again, I'm 55, so I didn't quite hit Rose's life, and about 10 years short of Laura Ingels Wilder's life, but. Yeah, these things, I know people where they touch. Heck, you guys go to that festival that happens later in this month out in Springfield. I think it is in Missouri.
Yeah, we're at the Marshfield, Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival. I go every year. It's a wonderfully wacky and fabulous event. I love it.
One of the guests who's been there, and that guy is still alive, is a grandson of President Tyler, who was a president in the mid-1800s, and that person is still alive, a grandkid, right?
Yeah.
This country is young. It is so young.
Well, that's what Cherry Blossom is all. It's a history nerd's dream. It's presidential descendants, panels on everything from the Titanic to the Dred Scott decision. I mean, it's all there, all this historical stuff. And then this really random assortment of celebrities. We have some Little House folks, some Waltons, and then Patrick Duffy, because he can.
I think this is probably Patrick Duffy's first visit to the Cherry Blossom Festival. I would think it is an interesting assortment of people. It is unlike any other conclave of popular television culture, television. Because yes, as Allison said, it's very focused on presidential history. The first ladies, the presidents, and the family members are there. That's what's so fascinating. One of the things that's so fascinating is you are meeting people who have lived this very unique experience of being at the center of the American experience at a given time. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I know. Because we all meet people. I know Roger Clinton. In the last couple of years, I've stayed at his house out. It's so crazy to say, out in Arkansas. Wow. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I did a live performance with En Vogue, and I was, I'm like, yeah, this what a presidential brother in the world they get drawn into is these amazing things." And so yeah, it is in his career, he already had a music career. He got hijacked because his brother goes straight to the moon with his presidential career, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm just like a dude who likes to party and sing and do performances, and it's like, oh, now I'm on a world stage. It's so crazy.
The muscle to be out front and be forward was sort of the same, but where it was focused was different.
Totally.
Yeah. No, is Roger the younger brother of or the older brother?
Yeah. Younger brother. Yeah. And absolutely has legitimate performing chops and, was going to make a career at that. But that's a different lifestyle too, right? Like, hey, it's kind of like when Billy Carter was out there, like he's like, I'm just me. I'm just going to keep drinking these beers,
Billy did not change. Billy.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
I want to go back to Little House in the new series. Okay, and so we talked about all these like negative type things, and we talked about the perceptions of Indians and Laura and her mom and everything. But her mom also had to go on these adventures away from the house, and it's in the books. They talk about wild things that are like imagination things for kids when they're young, a sugar snow, and all these things that happen. And so, yeah, if there's Indians in the area or there had been a massacre 5 years before, you're a parent. I mean, look at our parents today, right? We monitor our kids where they are, where their cell phone is. We have cameras in the house. We wouldn't dare let them to go off. My parents, I would say, hey, I'm going to go to Santa Cruz for the weekend. And they'd be like, see you later. They never like said, do you need any money? I guess they just assumed I would rob a bank or something to survive, right? And so it's a different time. And we see these things. There's all these wonderful things like learning how to make ice cream on your own, or the fact that Laura had a corn cob for a doll. All these amazing things that are just the things of imaginations, but really seemingly happened with Laura.
You made your own fun, as they used to say then. You didn't have it. It was literally, well, do we have a doll? Nope, but I got a corn cob. Therefore, I have a doll.
Playing ball with a pig bladder.
Yeah, right.
I mean, boy, that's making the most of your surroundings. And how bizarre is that? I mean, I don't think any of us can conceive of doing so. And yet that was their life.
Kids who grew up on farms. My father was on a farm in the Great Depression on the Prairie in Canada, in Saskatchewan. And when that came in, he's like, oh, yeah, play with pig bladder. Of course we did, because that's what you do, because you use every part of the pig. And now it's time to play with the pig bladder. And I'm like, ew, what?
It's just wild. That's wild. It really is.
I think about your character, Dean Almanzo, who, he's out. He's got a wagon. He had it made himself. Horses that he trained himself, and it's like, let's go on a ride. And that's how they courted. They went on a sleigh ride, really. And you think about these things, and again, you can see it, and that's why this story is so powerful, because I want to sit under a blanket with the sweet young girl next to me and have these conversations and trying to figure out life. And you're just all in these kind of lives too. Like, I'm reading about Davy Crockett right now, this great book by Buddy Levy. And this guy had to do everything, like if he could, he killed more deer, more bears, so he could pack it into his friend's cooler. They call him a larder, pack it into a larder because he might need a favor someday. And so, Laura, the girls, they have chores, but these are life and death chores. They're making their own mattresses. This stuff is crazy. And I can't wait to see what they do with these stories.
Well, I think to your point, Pete, the new series is going to be more, I think, tied to that. When Laura wrote about what people did to survive. Michael Landon, as he wrote about what people felt. What they did was just a byproduct of what they were, they had to do things. But what Michael was interested in was what we're feeling as we're doing what we're doing. What Laura was interested in, much more interested in her more stoical way, was what did we do to get from this day to this day to this day? And she wrote it in this wonderfully sweet, innocent way, which I think took a lot of what we know was a very harsh, difficult life. And she was able to find the beauty in it, and she wrote it in a beautiful way so it could be acceptable for children to read. I mean, that was one of the reasons why her Prairie Girl or Pioneer Girl was not accepted, because it was perhaps too harsh. When Rose suggested that Little House become a children's book, the tone had to change. And what Harper and Brothers responded to during the Great Depression was that here was a child or a family that were making it work, that were surviving and flourishing with the means that they had around them, and seeing the world in the best possible terms, even though it was not easy. And this was a wonderful allegory for the Great Depression, when American families really did struggle, this was part of Little House was a tonic for that. Just as Little House was following the Second World War in Japan, when The Long Winter was translated into Japanese, so the Japanese could have an example of enduring in obviously incredibly difficult circumstances that they found themselves in as a country. Little House was a tonic for them. Little House has been a tonic for generations of people because it does paint an optimistic view of challenging circumstances. And it reinforces this idea, Pete, that we have a choice. We always have a choice as to how we deal. I think we can only wish that we could have been in similar circumstances, be as optimistic, be as forward thinking and hopeful as Laura was, as she wrote these books. It's very important stuff for us. And today, I know Allison's going to get a word in here.
I know, because it's so good, and you're so on it.
Today, our world is so nuanced, and there's a lot of ambiguity in character that we see with things. Are they good? Are they not good? And it's very human. At least in Laura's world, people were good, and certainly the way Michael wrote it, people were good or they weren't. And it made the storytelling simpler and the lessons clearer to allow that to happen. Doesn't mean that people were as right down the line as she wrote them or as Michael wrote them, but you got to see solid examples of how to behave or how you might consider behaving along the spectrum of behavior. And I think it's instructive. It's valuable for people. And I think parents, people who are responsible for the upbringing of children, have responded to Little House for years in a wonderful way because the lessons are so clear.
Well, and it's a tonic. And you remember, not only the books came out, boom, height of the Depression, and no matter how hard you have it, the Ingalls have it harder and are totally making it work. But then the show premiered in 1974 when it was what we had whip inflation now and gas ration. We're having a massive recession. And oh, look, here's the show where Charles is talking about, do I have 2 cents for a slate pencil? And everyone's identifying with this. So it's always like been there when times are hard. And I think what you said about, Michael talking about how they felt. Laura at that time, stoicism was the way. When you read the books, Paul's not crying every 5 minutes. People don't express huge emotions in public and openly. Public displays of affection are like not a thing. But in the 70s, what he did was, it was almost like these were the emotions that Ma and Pa and the children were having, but could not express openly in public in the 1870s. But here, magically in this show, they're going to be able to burst out and tell each other, I love you, and cry and laugh out loud and do all these things.
And they have the advantage of a beautiful David Rose underscore that magnifies this emotional life and makes it huge. It's the music of Little House is an absolutely essential ingredient in the show's emotional impact. David Rose is leading the audience from moment to moment with this beautiful, rich evocation. He can make you laugh, and he can make you cry, and he can make you cry in a beautiful way.
Yep.
And I think that's just you cannot underestimate. We cannot underestimate how incredibly important that ingredient was to the way Little House landed for people as they sat at home and watched it on television.
100%.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned the music part too. And also Michael Landon's imagery, quite often using hands to express deep thoughts. And he was always great, but he just developed a mastery of how to use things. And again, it's kind of pulled away from the books themselves, because you talked about emotions. You don't show someone's hands in a close-up if they're not showing you how to carve wood. They're showing you how to feel, right? And that's an amazing thing that Michael was able to do with the show. I do want to get on to what you guys are doing now, but I just want to spend a few more minutes just thinking about, like, in the books they talk a lot about, like, the days of the week and what happened on each day of the week. And Sunday, it's not great for TV, but they just sat there and they rested. So I'm resting.
Yes.
You can feel Laura's anxiety about just sitting there. I'm like, can't we just go outside and run up and down a hill? And it's like, no, we're gonna.
Did the show really focus on sitting still on? I mean, look, Ma was talking about today is Sunday. Definitely the books did. Yeah. So Michael. Ma and Pa had a moment in, what was it, Harvest of Friends, when Maz goes off to church on Sunday, comes home, and there's Pa in the field plowing because he's got to get it done. And it's Sunday, and she's really upset about it.
Yeah.
But there weren't many of those moments. Nope. There weren't many of that kind of moment.
On the show, they made it clear you were not to work on a Sunday, and Sunday was the Lord's day, and everybody went to church. But it was more festive. It was more modern. They were church picnics and after church parties, and you could absolutely hang out at the house and make cookies or hang out in the yard and have fun. But you still had to, you had your Bible period. Whereas in the books, literally everything came to a grinding halt. You went to church, you came home, you sat, you read the Bible, and then often went back to church for like an evening service. And so in the books, it's like really harsh. But on the show, we had like after church picnics and things. That was okay as long as you didn't do any work.
Yeah, sitting in a corner, listening to the clock tick tock would not have been really visual for television. Would have been great for a short scene.
Yeah, right.
But you couldn't live on it for very long.
Or a dark Swedish film, but it wouldn't not episode on television. You couldn't do that.
Yeah. There are so many of these little things that we could go on into in the story. I guess I'll just say this other thing, because I love baseball. I love talking about baseball, and we'll often take like modern baseball players and say, if you took Shohei Ohtani and you put him back in Babe Ruth's day, he'd be the best. Like, if he survived being, but if he survived being a kid in 1895, being born that year, because 1 in 4 dies, by the time you're 18, accident. So even in Little House, a sister gets a fever and goes blind. Almanzo is crippled for the rest of his life and still has to be a farmer, and so these things, I hope that they show some of the ruggedness required. I look at my ancestors. We got some Swedish stuff. We had Minnesota land. We came out from Sweden because the land sucked and it was rocky. And so Allison, how this goes. It was swampy, crappy, rocky land. And all of the women for like 100 years didn't make it to even 30 years old. They fell off of hay bales. They fell, everything, right? And so there's a lot of tragedy that happens. And it was just normal for kids to die. Like, you could have a 3-year-old like, we don't even think about him. That kid was just 3. Like, he just didn't make it. And like, they don't even count that kid as part of the family because it was just normal to lose people. And so I'm hoping that they show some of that tragedy in this series, not to be morose or morbid, but that is a reality of like, that person got appendicitis and died, all the time.
In Little House in the series that was touched on, certainly the Lord is my shepherd. Ma and Pa lose a baby early on. Later in the series, Laura and Almanzo have a son. That son dies shortly after the episode. That episode is called A Child with No Name, which was in fact a very common thing in those days,
right?
Where people didn't name children until they were convinced those children were actually going to survive.
Shocking.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it was part of the reality of living in that time. And yes, we showed that. Oh my God, there was so much tragedy in the Little House series of all kinds. It was handled but it was, for the most part, in the end, what you get is the grace and the dignity of that tragedy, the acceptance of tragedy and the moving forward that comes from that. There's no wallowing it. Maybe characters, yes, a character and the lesson is, no, don't wallow in it. You need to move forward, and those are the kinds of lessons that Michael taught so well. There was not a lot of self-pity in the Little House series. Lots of tragedy, not a lot of self-pity.
That's right.
Yeah. But unless you have something to say about that, Allison, I'm going to transition to your guys' books. Do you want to add anything to the tragedy?
He's going to have to.
All right, let's do it. So, Prairie Man, Dean, you've been on the show once talking about that, but let's kind of rehash. There's the book right there. Here comes the links for everybody to go to Amazon and pick them up. Let's talk about Prairie Man and what that's about, and then we'll go to Allison.
So, Prairie Man came about as a result of me thinking in 2022, the 50th anniversary of Little House is just a few short years away. If there's ever an opportunity for me to write something, knowing that so many women in our cast had written their book, it just struck me that there was synergy around that anniversary to create this book. And so it's about Little House. It's about my life pre and post Little House. It was a great adventure. Writing a memoir is literally that, that comparison to peeling back an onion. It really is peeling back the onion of your life. And all these things, so much lives in our memories. And maybe we don't think about some of the things that have happened to us for years, but memory is very connective. So as you start writing one thing, it triggers this connection to the other thing, to the other thing, to the other thing. And you can go down pretty deep if you're looking to go deep, or you may not be thinking you're looking to go deep, but it can get deep because memories do connect. And that was a really fun adventure. Well, of course, Prairie Man has been out since June of 2024. It will go to soft cover in November of 2025. And I'm in the midst of writing a new book now, and it's called Living the Prairie Way. And I think it's much more observational about themes and values and the lessons that Little House taught to people, the lessons that are available in the whole Little House world, whether it be the books or the series, and how those lessons can, if heard, reverberate positively in our lives today. So that is the focus of this new book. And I will tell you, it's much harder to write a book like that than to write a memoir, because you have to put it all together. My life is my life, and I could write it down. I have to be crafted. It has to be spun up in a way, but I know that story. This other story is much more thinking involved in making that connection. So it's really, this is going to be a fun adventure, much more challenging, and I think hopefully interesting to people who love what the values of Little House are. So that's books for me. Allison?
Yeah.
My that thing is still selling. I just got like numbers on the sales of the audio book and the paperback the other day. And it was like, still that's this year. Okay. They can't get enough of the darn thing. But well, exactly the title. And someone said to me early on, they said, "Did you get any flack from the publisher about the title?" And I said, "No." They said, "Best damn title anybody's brought in all week." It was, and it's so funny because it really comes from the website. I joke about bonnetheads.com, my website. It's Howie Green Design of Boston put together a website. And when he did this is like 100 years ago, just getting websites. As a joke, he called it the official Alison Arngrim Confessions of a Prairie Bitch Nellie Oleson website, because it'd be funny. And it really stuck. And so when I started my one-woman show, it was Confessions, I guess it's Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. And that took off. And then when I met a literary agent who said, "Is there a book to go with the show?" And I like, "There could be." And so the book, what's it called? Yeah, the book's called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. And then they said, "Well, we need a longer title." And I said, How I Survived Being Nellie Oleson and Learned to Love Being Hated. Which,
well, that's awesome.
A handful of people have figured out that it's a Dr. Strangelove joke. How I learned to stop worrying and love the book.
Yeah, I love it.
I was like, "Can I do Dr. Strangelove joke?" Yes, I can. And so it was just, and it worked. It's really, people really like it, and they tell me so, and they come to the events and they want it again, and they write to me. And I said I wouldn't do a book until I felt I could really tell the truth and just throw everything in. And I did throw in everything in the kitchen sink. I put it all in there, and I'm glad I did. I think it came out really well. And then the one woman show's just been going and going. And the one woman show's changed so many times. It's like a totally different show, but we're just still calling it Confessions. It's like Confessions 2025. We add things, and of course the Q&A section is in there, but that still happens. As I said, Mother's Day, always Mother's Day in New York, the 11th, on May 11th in New York at the Cutting Room. And then it's off to Nashville and Louisville. But it's just, I don't know. I hit a nerve. I made the bestseller list so happy. And I should warn you, Dean, remember I warned you about how crazy things get. The paperback, I did not expect it. They said there'll be a flurry of activity when the paperback comes out. Flurry, I wound up on The View. It was like more than a flurry. It was like actually a cataclysmic explosion of activity when the paperback came out, and hasn't let up. So warning, you might want to brace yourself for the day the paperback comes out. Just saying.
Okay. Well, that will be exciting. I know we're going to be writing a sort of an addendum chapter for the adding it some, so there's some new little tidbits in the paperback, but I think, I'm looking forward to that. This has all been quite the adventure, and a fantastic way to talk to people who love what this material is all about. And
there's something in that too that I wanted to ask you guys about. There's a friend of mine did a documentary called The Gift, and it's about a guy named Jason Dunham who in Iraq jumped on a grenade and gave this gift. Gosh, it makes me emotional talking about it. He gave this gift of his life and everything that comes with it to this unit. And so this unit is forever bonded. Like, we're all in units in the military. It's not like, oh man, it's so precious. So, or I could go, maybe he has some nostalgia, but that's it. But when Jason jumps in that grenade, he gives these guys a number of gifts by just simply giving his life. And so you guys have a similar thing where you're required to know the books. You have to know the episodes. You really belong to this world, because it's not like you did a show and moved on to something else. Like, no, you guys belong to this universe now. Like, it's part of what you get to be. And it is a gift of positive things, but there's also the gift of like, you're in this universe and you're not escaping it. And so you have to learn how to deal with that as well. I'm always fascinated by these gifts that come to us unexpectedly that are something way bigger than the thing that started. Like, my ridiculous show here is way bigger than me, and it does things for me all the time. And I'm like, what a marvelous gift. It also entraps me too, because these things that are so wonderful also own part of us, right? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yes. It chooses you. All the famous people who are famous for certain things almost always never chose that thing. I always said Patsy Cline didn't want to record Crazy. She hated the song Crazy. And the list goes on and on. It's always like, that's the thing. I mean, you don't really know. And when we did Little House and when it first ended, we all, because we're actors, we all said, well, that was great. And now we'll all go do something else and everyone will forget about this. And that didn't happen. Nobody forgot. It just kept going. And then at some point you go, this is a real thing. This means something to people. This is important and is somehow impacting my life in this way. And maybe I need to just go with that. And when I look at my life and like how I met my husband and how this happened and that happened, this happened, and it just becomes a joke. We say all roads lead to Walnut Grove, but it's like everything gets tied in to where it's like, and that was because of Little House on the Prairie, and that was because of Little House on the Prairie, and it starts to sound crazy, but that is what happened. And so we are part of it, and it has become our world, and we're part of their world, and that's how it is.
I can track so many wonderful things that have happened to me in my life since Little House to Little House. When you're involved in something that is known and loved globally in all over the world, and it's loved for so many good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the wonderful thing that you can't predict, is to that core of good feeling that surrounds all of this has been a thing that has fueled so much of the activity in my life. And every career has a genesis. I think all of us are grateful that Little House is the genesis of our careers.
Yeah. You think you guys have both been to DeSmet, Minnesota, I'm
yes.
assuming.
Oh,
yeah, right.
times.
Like this is a tiny town that you would never drive through, and they have a concurrent Pioneers Day because of this gift. Because these books resonated so hard. A place, I don't know how many people live there, but it's not 20,000, and they have this.
Oh, it's not even anywhere near that big.
Oh God, no.
Right.
No.
And for decades, and probably forever. Always be old Settlers Day there because of this gift. It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
And they've really done a job on preserving the town and the buildings when they lived in town and the house. And they have they have a pageant. I mean, they figured it out. They've gone, yes, we are DeSmet. They've just gone with it. And we've been to Walnut Grove, which if you blink, you will miss it when you are driving.
Smaller.
That is really tiny, but they have a great museum. And there. That's big that they've gone. We have an identity. We have a purpose. We have it, and there they are.
Yeah, and you guys are part of that purpose as well. It's such a neat thing. Your dates for when you're out doing your one-woman show, Allison? Where do we find the dates for that?
You can find the dates all over Facebook. If you do go to bonnetheads.com, BONNETSHE, bonnet, BONNET, singular, HEADS, plural.com, bonnetheads.com, and I'm launching AlisonArngrim.net. And then on my Facebook, I have refreshed calendar on my page. I'm Alison Arngrim, and I have all my dates. But absolutely, also you can go to Spin Cycle NYC, SpinCycleNYC, one word.com. And all my dates are there. I'm May 11th in New York. I'm May 15th in Nashville, May 16th in Louisville. And then it just keeps going. I'm in Provincetown. I'm in San Diego. I'm in San Francisco. I'm in Chicago. I'm everywhere. And then, of course, we have our giant Prairie extravaganza in June in Northern California that we're excited about. So.
Right. Well, okay, let's talk about that. Little House in the Prairie.
Cast reunion. In Gold Country. Yeah. So, so many of the beautiful, beautiful episodes that Little House featured were shot in Gold Rush Country because it was a location that Michael had shot in during the Bonanza years. Our producer, Kent McCrae, loved shooting up there because of the Sierra Railroad. He loved trains. The beautiful Sierra Railroad steam engine that's an 1890s steam engine is still there, still runs. We're doing an event connected to that train. We're doing a wine and cheese ride on the Sierra Railroad, which should be beautiful. I mean, just to see this engine chug into the station in Jamestown and take us all on a ride, I think it's going to be really fun for people. It's, that steam engine was in every episode where a train was featured in the show. Jamestown, or rather Columbia, where the major part of the event is taking place. Jamestown is Saturday afternoon and evening, and Columbia is where for the 3 days, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the home of the event. Multiple episodes were shot in and around Columbia. We'll be able to show you where those places are. We're having our VIP meals in a restaurant that was shot in the show. It looks exactly the same. I think people are going to love that. There's a blacksmith who's making shoes he's got the fire and the whole thing going all the time. There'll be stagecoach rides. We have our panels. We have meet and greet sessions. Columbia is a museum to the 1880s. And this is exactly the time that Little House took place. It's a special location. The train is amazing.
The train, the number 3, and it's obviously our Little House train, but it was also Back to the Future. It's been in so many movies, and almost always number 3. And I call it the hardest working train in show business because that train, you just go, it's funny, it's like the same train I saw. Yes, it is. Because how many perfect condition, fully functioning, authentic steam trains are there? There's only so many left and only so many that are working. And so here it is. Everybody uses this train. It's the train. And you can get on it and have wine and cheese with us.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah.
That's going to be fun.
You
can check out littlehousegoldcountry.com to find information about the event and buy your tickets. if you choose to come and be with us that weekend. I think it's going to be a really, really fun weekend. And Columbia in early June is leafy and beautiful, and it just should be a great time.
Yep.
Yeah. The link for that, everybody, is just down over there, Little House. And look in the remarks. You'll see it in there. It'll be in the show notes as well. But yeah, definitely go check these things out. And again, De Smet, Walnut Grove, Columbia, these are dinky little towns. So you're talking an hour east of Stockton.
Yeah,
and, you know, it's crazy. So, I mean, Gold Country, is it even on a highway? It
is Highway 49. Highway 49 goes into Sonora.
That's what you got to take.
Goes into Sonora. Yeah.
You go to look at the map to drive up, because most of us are driving up, and it's like, okay, well, I take the 5, right, and then I take this, and then I get off where, and all of a sudden it's like something road, and then you're 49. I'm like, wow, okay, we're going out there, but. We like that. And we've been, I mean, when you look at like Pepin, Wisconsin, where Laura was born, this big.
Yeah.
And then even Mansfield, Missouri, where the house is, where she wrote the books. That is not a big city. And we go to all these places and do appearances. And we've done appearances in teeny, tiny little towns. And I like it. You know, I have a thing going, I'm always in France. I have a show I do in France. And I do it in small towns. We go out to these very small towns and we say, le même esprit, the same spirit of Walnut Grove, that we find the real spirit of the prairie in these small towns.
Yeah. You know, so far, Pete, we've got people from 30 states and 3 countries traveling to Columbia as we're able to look at the metrics on our ticket site. So people are coming from all over to this event, so it's going to be very special. I think people will be able to stand in the spots that they watched on television for years and and they look just the same, which is amazing. Yeah,
I love it. And just for anybody watching, you guys definitely should take up offers to do these things. So first off, you know what I say about these books. Buy 2 and buddy read, because they're great gifts and everybody loves these stories. So, you know, support these guys. I'm going to put the links up here as I'm talking about this and promoting everything. But also, like, the opportunity to go out and do something like go to Columbia is cool if you got young kids. Again, this is super fun stuff. Definitely get out there. That part of the world in California is a completely different world than the one you picture. This is, and you're right, it's the 1880s. I'm actually working on, we're talking about me too much, but I'm working on a project, California 1880s. It's in my hometown. I'm just downriver towards right when the bay turns from Delta to the bay. There's more of my town. It's called Benicia. It used to be the capital.
Oh my God. Benicia. I mean, that's the what's the fleet called in Benicia?
Oh, the mothball fleet. Yeah.
A mothball fleet, which is slowly being diminished.
It's basically not there now. Yeah,
it's basically all gone. But boy, that was a big thing that we all saw. I grew up in the Bay Area too, so
that's right. Well, if you go around the corner and you follow when the river turns into a little, like the Delta turns into a river for a minute and then it heads out to the bay. When you go around the corner of the other side of Benicia, there is a little cove there. And back in 1889, 2 dudes from San Francisco said, right here, right now, we're fighting to the fin, not death, but just like till one of us quits. And so they fought 27 rounds. And it's one of the most historic fights in early fight history. It just has gotten lost to time a little bit. They've even made a movie about it in the past, but it was like one of those Errol Flynn, like fantasy movies about this fight. But that 1880s era is a wild era for history, and especially in California, because it was becoming something. Reconstruction's going on. It's all kinds of great things to talk about. And so, again, going to Columbia is stepping back into that time. And there's all kinds of stuff in that area. Also, Boomtown, all kinds of stuff that you can go look at if you want to make a weekend out of it. Lots and lots and lots.
I think you're right. I think it's a great weekend trip, actually.
And fans have been messaging me about the candy apples. They've been saying, you're going to be up there. They go get the candy apples. They said, don't eat as many as Willie did in the store, but that the candy apples there are apparently epic.
Epic.
The apples. Candy stores, the ice cream store. There is so much to see and lots to snack on. If you like tasting things, it's all over Columbia. It's great.
And you're right. And these kind of things, again, like if you like, I always want to support small mom and pop places. Go to Columbia. That's where they are, right? Like buy all the stuff on Amazon you want to buy, but go enjoy these things. They're really, it's really neat to be able to do this.
No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
We have been so fortunate to be in so many of these little places. Columbia is one of the coolest of the little places, and it has this direct Little House connection, which is really fun.
Love it.
Well, for the kickoff for our 50th last year, we went to Simi Valley, where we filmed most of our outdoor scenes in town was. And now for the kickoff for the 51st, we're going up to Gold Country, where we shot all the stuff when we went on location to Sonora.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all neat. Everybody should read all of the books about all of the things. We've talked about all kinds of things for sure. Support Dean, support Allison. Do you want to talk about your show, Allison? Your podcast.
If you're in New York or there, like I said, I'll get to you eventually because I'm in Chicago and I'm over in Provincetown, getting the boat from Boston, and I'm absolutely everywhere, coast to coast here. And it's fun. I mean, it is the evening. The evening show is the R-rated show for the grown-ups. If you see me doing it somewhere 3 p.m, it's the G-rated one. But if it's at a nightclub, and it's so much fun because I have crazy stories and photos and video to back all of them up. And then we have the Ask Allison Anything cards that people can fill out. And then at one point we just show, okay, and now it's the Q&A section. And I read it. I don't get these cards. If I get them before the show, I get them like seconds, like 2 minutes before the show. So it's not like I've gone, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that and plan. I am handed these and I am reading them and answering them live on stage spontaneously. And it is bananas.
Well, and then Alice, and we've also had this wonderful opportunity together to be involved in the Little House 50th anniversary podcast.
So much fun.
Which we started, we probably launched it, I want to say a couple of months before the 50th anniversary celebration in Simi Valley last year.
Right.
And we've done, I think we are doing, I think our next show will be our 60th show. So, we've had a really good time with it. And we are now, so we talked to a lot of personalities around the Little House experience last year. And we are adding to that specific discussions of specific episodes. And Allison and I are joined by very clever, smart, very dialed in Little House fan, Pamela Bob, who's a Broadway actress and a producer. She has her limited series that she did called Living on a Prairie, which is all about an obsessed woman in New York today who just lives her life in this Little House world. Well, Pamela's got a wonderful connection to Little House and a wonderful, clever point of view about it. And we've had a great time talking about Little House now into our second season, and on we go.
It's so cool. We've interviewed practically everybody from the show, and then we've interviewed people about Little House, people who worked on Little House different capacity, people who've written about Little House in the Prairie, people who are historians who've studied the books and the whole phenomenon of Little House. And we've covered it from every possible angle and are continuing to go just down this whole Little House in the Prairie rabbit hole every week. It's great.
Love it. Yeah, and thanks for doing that. I mean, these kinds of stories, I always like to remind people, Billy the Kid was lost, dead, and gone, forgotten, right? Until someone came along and said, who was this guy? Tell me what he did. And then now he's probably the most famous of the gunslinging, type people. And so it takes people like you to not only be part of that world, but also to add something else into it, because there are these people that read the letters and put the books together and tell us these amazing stories that happen after the books where they drop off. And that whole world is just, I love all of it. Even when there's critique, I love the whole thing, because you understand it's a story of America and what it was like, from a long time ago, and how, again, like you made the point, Dean, earlier, of how deeply applicable it still is today.
These are the foundations. These stories are the foundation of our lives. Yeah. So of course, they are very relevant and important for us to understand where we've been, where we are, and where we're going.
I want to wrap it up. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Dean, I'll give you a chance to go for the last word first, and then
again,
thank we done it all. I don't know.
Yeah, no, Pete. Thank you for having us. It's very nice of you to do this, and you have an interesting take on things. You're obviously you are very dialed in yourself, and that's really cool. So thank you for that.
Well, my pleasure. All right, let me hang this thing up and I'll say goodbye to you guys officially. Everybody else, if I'm fast, will be a show right after this. If not, I'll release it later today. But this one, thank you for watching it. Support these guys. They are awesome people off mic too. So they are good. Thank you too. I'll see you in a second here.
Thank you.